Hello everyone, I bring you another recommended reading video today, and what we're looking at here are parts 1 and 2 of Falklands Task Force Portfolio, and these are, as you can probably imagine, a good resource in terms of photographs. There's a little bit of text in them as well, a little bit of sort of a narrative, but they offer sort of a chronology in the two books from the voyage south, the actual operations in the Falklands, and then obviously the troops returning home. So they're quite a good reference from the point of view of the number of photographs that each of the books contains, and there is a bit of information there as well, and I recommend getting them. They aren't expensive to pick up secondhand. I think they were produced fairly soon after the conflict, so from that point of view they're quite historically interesting as well, because they are sort of an example of some of the literature and so forth that was produced immediately post-conflict for those who were interested at the time. So I recommend picking these up. As I say, they're not expensive. We're going to have a quick flick through them now and just have a look at some of the photographs and so forth that you get in these, some of the interesting information that's provided in them. So here we have them, Falklands Task Force Portfolio Part 1 on the left here and Part 2 on the right. As you can probably tell from the photographs chosen for the covers of these, Part 1 deals primarily with the Naval Task Force, the ships, both naval and the requisitioned civilian ships, and then Part 2 deals primarily with ground forces, and there's a smattering of information regarding air forces and photographs relating to air forces in both of these as well, of course. These were produced in the mid-1980s, I believe, and from that point of view, quite nice, sort of historically anyway, of some of the collectible in their own right, I guess you could say, and some of the literature that was produced post-conflict for those who were interested. So opening up Part 1 here, first of all, you can see obviously a photograph of Hermes there on the inside cover, some other sort of related publications being advertised on the inside cover here. This is nice in that it retains the map that was produced with these, the campaign map of Operation Corporate, which is the right way up here, and you can see that shows you the troop movements during operations on East Falkland, which is quite nice to have. You can see details here at the top here. So produced from a photo reduction complete by CS Rep MOD January 1983, copyright HMSO London 1982. So that's nice that that was included within this. If you're buying these secondhand, try and make sure the map is included. That was part of these originally, I believe. And we start off, we have HMS Endurance here, the ice patrol ship, which is stationed in the Falklands at the time of the invasion. And this, of course, does deal with the Argentine invasion, as you can see here. Some famous photographs from that. Only a brief coverage of that here, obviously detailing the deployment of nuclear submarines to the South Atlantic and the immediate preparations to send the task force. We move on to Gibraltar here, and ships joining the voyage south from Gibraltar. So you have the two hospital ships here, Uganda and Hydra. And then a section dealing with warships of the task force, which is quite interesting. There's some nice photographs in here, not all necessarily taken during the voyage south, but showing the ships that were involved, which is a nice thing to have. Details of what was going on at Portsmouth, obviously, as the task force was loaded and set sail. Hermes and HMS Fearless, one of the amphibious landing ships here, as you can see, the amphibious assault ships rather. And then you have various, obviously, Royal Fleet auxiliary vessels and commandeered merchant ships providing support to the task force. The Atlantic Conveyor, of course, Atlantic Causeway, of course, similar to Atlantic Conveyor, but another container ship. Submarines there. So it's nice, this, isn't it? It covers different naval bases and what was going on at different naval bases at the time. There is often a focus on the south coast, of course, but naval assets were pulled from all over the place to form the task force. And we do have details of air forces here as well, naval air assets as well, to some degree. You can see details for helicopters that were available there. And again, more ships being drawn from other naval bases. You can see, just flick through quickly there. The Canberra, of course. Continue flicking through. want to make this too long a video, but just to give you a flavour of what you'll find in here. As I say, this part 1 deals primarily with the voyage south. There's Atlantic Conveyor, obviously modified for use as a helicopter and Harrier carrier, using containers to create a sort of open hangar on the deck. So this deals primarily with the voyage south and the naval assets of the task force. Obviously we have photographs here from troops going ashore, or Marines going ashore at Ascension. See that there? And training on Ascension. Continue flicking through, and it deals with some other of the other sort of civilian vessels that were requisitioned to support the task force again. Further preparations being made back at Devonport, because obviously the initial task force sailed and then other ships were deployed to join it and provide the support that will be necessary to maintain a fleet in the South Atlantic for a prolonged period. And then this of course deals with South Georgia, the first sort of reconquest of South Georgia, and some photographs dealing with that there. So that takes you through sort of to that stage of the operation. Obviously further troops being prepared here. You have Queen Elizabeth QE2 being pressed into service as a troop ship, and obviously Fire Brigade being set up, being organised to be sent down south as well, as you can see here, the Guards and the Gurkhas, so, and the supporting elements as well, of course. We move on to Task Force Portfolio Part 2, and this deals more with the ground campaign. And you can see here, starting there with the Harrier on the flight deck of Hermes by the look of it, with the typically inclement South Atlantic, the time of year that the conflict took place. And we move straight in here. Obviously you have further photographs detailing preparations, no turning back obviously. This is some of the captions, so forth, a bit, some of the text is a little bit sensationalist, I think, just in style of newspaper journalism of the time, but the photographs and so forth are well reproduced and quite interesting and informative, and from that point of view I do recommend these. As I say, see a beach armour recovery vehicle coming ashore there, carrying troops, Royal Engineers. And you can see here details of the build-up at San Carlos, Ajax Bay. Very famous photograph there, as you can see, HMS Antelope. A photograph that was reproduced in both the British and the Argentine press, because it's an absolutely striking photograph. You can see here typical example of sort of anti-aircraft, improvised anti-aircraft defences with a GPMG mounted on a pintle there. And bomb alley, of course. We have a Scorpion of the Blues and Royals here, of course, attached to 3 Commando Brigade. And further photos of stores being brought ashore, the beachhead being built up. And of course the realities of war, casualty evacuation. And as I say, there are a huge number of photographs in this, and that's one reason I recommend picking these up, is there are a lot of photographs you won't find reproduced online, or certainly not in such good quality as they are in this publication. I'll just continue flicking through here and see the move, the initial moves inland, yomping across. And we do have a colour section in this one as well, not a very large colour section, but the centre section has we have some colour photographs here, which sort of relate to the conflict as a whole, as opposed to the sort of mini chronology in the centre here, in this centre colour section, as you can see. So that's quite nice to have. Most of the other, well, the rest of the other photographs in the book are of course black and white. You can see the Argentine submarine Santa Fe here being salvaged. I've always found that rather interesting because it's quite famous, the photographs of it alongside the pier at Grytviken. So it's quite interesting to see the aftermath of that, with it being salvaged and taken under tow by ocean-going tugs there. So you flicking through here. There's quite a bit of text in this as well, as you can see, dealing with the losses of ships and the damage to ships in Bomb Alley, Obviously photographs showing some of the damage. HMS Arrow here, as you can see. There is definitely more text in part 2, as you can see, which is very interesting. You can see here extra air defence team armed with SLRs and wearing their anti-flash and so forth there to give close-in air support. The Argentine aircraft were flying so low and coming in over land, it was rather difficult for the anti-aircraft missile systems to engage them. And a lot of the ships had sort of, I guess you could say, inadequate close-in air defence. And this was one of the solutions to that, of course, was sailors and Marines armed with SLRs and GPMGs, literally just shooting at them. And you can see the air war is covered towards the back here. To a certain degree, there's not a huge amount of focus on the air war, but it is covered to some degree, as you can see. Helicopter operations and victory at last. So getting towards the end here, obviously there is a chronology through these two volumes, and obviously they move into Stanley and getting Argentine troops home. Improvised Exocet missile launcher here, or this is delivering them to. There was an improvised land-based Exocet missile launcher, and as you can see here, say the move through into Stanley, and time to go home. So meeting with the civilians here, liberated civilians, and the arrivals back home. And you can see it takes through there. Participating forces, there's a nice sort of summary of that at the back here. Honours and awards dealt with at the back here as well, which is nice to have. Quite interesting. You can see that there. And the losses are detailed. The names of those men who lost their lives are also dealt with in a section at the rear here as well. So definitely worth picking up. I think these two together, quite apart from the sort of information they provide, are an interesting collectible in their own right as to some of the publications which came out after the conflict. This has probably run a bit longer than I intended to, flicking through these. There are just so many photographs and so forth to have a look at. But hopefully you found it interesting looking through these two. I recommend picking them up. They're not expensive. They're easy to find. I forget what I paid for these, but it wasn't a lot of money, a few pounds each. And it's nice that this included the map as well, as I say, at the front there. So if you're picking up copies of these, try and find one that has that map included in the front there. So yeah, very happy with both of the so yeah, I recommend picking these up. As I say, they're not expensive, they're full of information, and say they're an interesting sort of collectible piece in their own right, because they were produced in the mid-80s and sort of one example of the literature that was produced immediately after the conflict. So I hope you found it interesting looking at this. As I say, these are not expensive. They're readily available on the second-hand market. So from that point of view, easy to pick up, not expensive, and have a wealth of photographs within them. That's why I'd recommend them. If you are looking to pick these up, try and find a copy of part 1 that includes the map, of course. Hopefully it's been informative flicking through these and having a quick look at the photographs and information contained within. Hopefully that'll inform you as to whether or not you want to add these to your library. And hopefully the video's been interesting overall anyway. If you have found this interesting and you'd like to see more of this sort of thing, please do consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And whether you're newly subscribing or you've previously subscribed, please do make sure you hit the little bell, the notification button down below. That will of course alert you when I upload future videos. If you really like my uploads and you would like to support the channel, you can. Both Patreon and PayPal are linked down below. And as I always say, a huge thank you to everybody who supports the channel using those two methods. It really is greatly appreciated. Thank you all very much indeed. If you'd like to follow the channel on social media, you can. Facebook, Instagram and Twitter are all linked down below. And if you'd like to get in touch with me but you don't really use social media, there is of course an email address down below in the description as well. That's everything for this video. So until next time, bye for now.